Before we go on with today's show, Ben, we just want to say thank you to everybody who has pre-ordered and everybody who will pre-order the Twin Peaks Unwrapped book.
And as you might know, we have so many people who have contributed to this book. Over 100 cast and crew have contributed, including
Richard Beamer,
Amy Shields,
Mark Frost,
Harley Payton,
Krista Bell,
David Patrick Kelly,
Ashley Judd,
David Duchovny,
and the one and only Kyle McLaughlin.
So it's going to be a great book. We thank you for everybody who has supported us. Go to Blue Rose Mag and use the promo code Kyle when you order our book and get $5 off.
And this code is only good until the end of the year. After that, that code goes away like your hopes of season 4.
There's going to be a season 4.
But there will be no code. So go to bluerosemag.com today.
What I want and what I need are two different things, Audrey.
Rejected. That's what he said. Nobody else is going to say anything different.
You want to feed him, Agent Cooper?
I don't like birds.
When do you think he'll start talking again?
Laura? Laura? Don't go there.
I'm gonna let you in on a little secret. Every day, once a day, give yourself a present.
And welcome to Twin Peaks Unwrapped. I'm your host, Ben Durant, and beside me is
Brian Kazaska.
Hey, it's another community rewatch show we're doing. We're going to focus on Twin Peaks episode 6, and we've got a great panel. And why don't we start with Simon?
Hey guys, I'm so happy to be here. Thank you so much for having me on the show. So hi, I'm Simon. I'm one of the writers for 25 Years Later. I've been writing for those guys for a few months now, and they've made me feel very welcome, and I'm very glad to be here on the show with you guys.
Laura from 25 Years Later, and I'm the Assistant Editor-in-Chief.
My name is Andy Bentley. I've been doing artwork for the podcast for a couple years now, and been on a couple episodes, most famously the secret biography of Dale Cooper.
So this is episode 6, and boy, we start off right with Cooper right next to Audrey naked in his bed.
Yeah, where to begin? I mean, Sherilyn Fenn in this series, Twin Peaks, I mean, she just has to be one of the all-time knockouts. I mean, she's just absolutely stunning. And I think, especially in this scene as well, that seems to be more apparent than usual. As a qualified hairdresser, I've got to say her hair game and Cooper's is very strong. I think it adds this kind of almost like a fairy tale quality to this scene. But yeah, she's absolutely stunning.
Yeah.
I
noticed the discussion of secrets.
That's right. Supposedly Cooper has no secrets, so he says.
No, I don't know.
I don't believe him.
Yeah.
Especially after we learned about Wyndham Earl and
his wife.
Interior, Great Northern Hotel dining room. Day. Waitress Trudy sets down 2 plates stacked with griddle cakes and ham, 2 glasses of orange juice, 2 cups of coffee, and a small ceramic pitcher of maple syrup.
Syrup?
Thank you.
Sugar?
Just a little.
Audrey, loving every shared moment.
Do you eat the same thing every day?
When I find something I like, I stick with it.
Me too.
Audrey levels a loving smile his way. Cooper never looks up from his food.
That's a pretty smile, Audrey. This ham is perfect.
Audrey, trying to get his attention.
I'm sort of excited.
Big test at school?
Not that I know of. It's my first day at work. I got a job.
Where?
That's a secret.
Audrey, a secret is a dangerous thing.
Do you have any?
No.
Oh, but Laura did, didn't she?
Laura was full of secrets.
Audrey just loos at Cooper, a sigh in her heart. She's never been in love before.
Agent Cooper. I'm going to help you learn all of Laura's secrets. We'll learn them together.
Cooper finally looks up from his breakfast, sees the adoring expression on her face.
Stick to your homework, Audrey. A high school diploma is nothing to sneeze at.
Audrey sees his concern, shakes it off. She will not be dissuaded.
Homework's for kids. I'm a working girl now. Syrup?
is this uncomfortable dialogue because she was in his bed naked, or did that never happen? I mean,
were they implying that it could have happened?
Yes, I'm wondering that. Like, how do you guys read that?
Sorry, the unseen scene.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, it feels like this was instead of it, because it kind of the same kind of things happen, don't they, in this scene rather than those ever. So it seems like she never got in his bed, but then it was just a very similar scene to what we've already seen in with the whole freshly squeezed bit. So I'm glad they changed that up a bit, because otherwise it would have just been more of the same.
Yeah, I was going to say, I agree with Laura. It's like there's not really anything that either of them say in this scene that hasn't already been said in a similar way in other scenes. But I think obviously moving it to Cooper's room adds like a whole new kind of layer to it, and this kind of tension. But I mean, we've already seen other scenes with those two in the dining room talking. So I'm kind of glad that they moved the location of this one, because I think it's better to keep their interactions more brief. I think it kind of makes their kind of flirtations a bit more kind of potent.
I agree.
Yeah, and I would say that the beginning of this episode puts a cap on the Audrey Cooper love story. For them, it's like kind of an ending for them not to go down that road. It could have been a little bit more ambiguous about what actually transpired that night.
Right. And this is the second to last episode of the season. And you could sometimes wonder if they were trying to tie up some storylines. Right. And this was an ongoing story between the chemistry between Cooper and Audrey.
To say, I think putting her in the bedroom when she's naked underneath the blankets, it makes her a whole lot more vulnerable, and it's really pushing that flirtatiousness. I mean, before it was just kind of schoolgirly crush, but this was, I'm really offering it on a plate now.
Yeah.
Yes, it's very...
And before, because otherwise the flirtatiousness between them just was that. It was just talking because they were in a public space, but this was really intimate. Yeah, like you said, it brought it to the end, didn't it? It was like, it has to be friendship and that's it now.
Right.
Some of that behind the scenes stuff that Brad Dukes unearthed about, the whole thing about didn't want the on-screen romance to happen, because after this, I think there's just her rescued in season 2. They barely spend any time together, right?
Right. Yeah.
It's true.
Yeah, it's very true. She goes with John Justice Wheeler.
The best.
One line I liked from the unseen scene was about eating the same thing every day, and Cooper saying, when I find something, I stick with it. I've heard tale that David Lynch went to Bob's Big Boys for lunch for just about every day, so I think that's a little of
the same
David
food, too. The same
coming into
he
Cooper.
He ate the same thing. Yeah, that's a great point.
Yeah, I second that. I think that line's really good. It's something I'm inclined to do myself, so I kind of relate to that. The line that I wanted to point out, though, was when he says, what I want and what I need are two different things, Audrey, which is obviously repeated by Mr. C in The Return when he's sitting in the cafe with Ray. So that's kind of almost like a bit of a callback in The Return to, that there's the good Cooper had that same kind of thought about knowing that, wants and needs are two very different things.
Yeah. What really led Audrey to do this? And the previous episode, she sees her father having an affair with Katherine. I wonder, and as she's crying, and I think Leland is dancing and stuff, and you wonder if that she's running to Cooper.
I mean, I know she has a crush on him, but he knows he's older. He's in the FBI. He is a father figure. I kind of saw that, and I mean, I don't know if that sounds weird, but just how I interpret his, obviously this is not right. You need someone to look up to.
Yeah, I was going to say, agree. It's kind of like the opposite of her father, a really responsible man that would never do, as far as she thinks, anything like that. So she's looking for that sort of protective father, the father that she didn't have, the one who actually did care about her. Ben didn't seem to care about her.
Yeah. So
I love the line as well with the what I want and what I need are two very different things.
Yeah.
Because seeing that in The Return, it just makes me think more that there is no difference between Mr. C and Cooper. They are just one and the same.
Yeah, right? I mean, one that goes the bad side of Cooper and the good side of Cooper.
Right.
Yeah. And then one of them does the right thing and the other one doesn't.
Yeah, just Lynch and Frost. They're so good at those subtle kind of throwback references. But I just think the dialogue in this whole scene is so well written. I mean, the writing credit goes to Harley Payton for this episode. So I'm not sure if it's 100% him or whether there's some dialogue has come from Lynch and or Frost. But just the bit where he also says secrets are dangerous things, and she says Laura has a lot of secrets, and he says finding those out is my job. I just think that especially that last line is just perfect. I mean, it kind of almost like sums up his whole character in just a single line of dialogue.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Harley doesn't get enough credit sometimes.
I agree. I mean,
Yeah.
I think everybody wants to say Harley did all the bad things and he ruined Twin Peaks, but there's a lot of great things he did. He did the cherry stem and he did the famous
Give yourself a present
every day.
Yeah, I
He did
mean,
a lot of good stuff.
yeah.
So, I mean, I think this whole episode is really well written in terms of dialogue, and we know that he's a really good writer because he's had a hand in other things, like most recently the Project Blue Book show, which is also very well written as well. So yeah, I agree. I think he needs some more credit.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I was going to say the same, really. That there's no filler at all in this episode. There's no boring scenes. Like everyone, and even not, it's sort of turning off the main story, like the Katherine scenes, the Lucy scenes, everything's leading up to their own personal mysteries, and it's all building up. So yeah, this is probably one of the best episodes of season 1, really. Deschanel, wasn't it? I think was director.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was all those two working together were clearly really good.
Yeah, it's just following on from what Laura's saying. Yeah, Caleb Deschanel's director of this episode. He's obviously married to Mary Jo Deschanel, who plays Eileen Hayward, and is also father to Zoe Deschanel. Just a bit of trivia, but yeah, he directs another 2 episodes in season 2, 2.8 and 2.12, and I think he overall over series 1 and 2 has a good contribution to the whole thing. The one thing I was going to say was I didn't know whether you guys were going to talk about the Log Lady intro at all.
This is great to talk about it because this is a rewatch and we can definitely add it. So yeah, do you have something to say about it?
So yeah, with the Log Lady intro, the main thing that she talks about is the idea of eyes being a window to the soul, and then she goes on to say about soulless eyes, and when you see them, that there's nothing behind them. And the thing that stood out to me when she said that is just the first time that we see Barb at the foot of the bed. That was the image that came into my head when she said that. So I thought that was quite interesting.
Yeah. Those Log Lady intros were all done in one day. I don't even think David Lynch was actually there. I think somebody else filmed Catherine Coulson.
Yeah, I believe all the intros were done. I think I read somewhere that it was when the first 2 seasons were shown on a channel called Bravo. I don't know whether you guys get that in the US or whether that's more of like a European thing.
Yep. We have Bravo, and it was to sweeten the deal of getting the shows. They wanted something new.
Yeah, I want to say it was 93, so it wasn't that long after. I mean, it was after Firewalk with Me, but it wasn't too long after the series had ended. Bravo got all of Twin Peaks to re-air.
I think a great scene to touch upon is the when they're listening to Laura's tapes, and James discovers that Laura's kind of mocking James. I mean, this is like a heartbreaking scene for poor James over here. Yeah. They're all listening. Like, can you imagine you pass away and someone finds your diary or secret tapes? And you're trash talking someone you're supposed to love, and that person hears it. I mean, this is the worst. And you hear the scene, and you're like, I don't know if I feel bad for Laura anymore. Oh. I hate to say that. I'm only kidding. I felt bad for Laura, but I'm just saying, it does change the dynamic, and that Laura has. There's a lot more to her. I mean, Firewalk with Me will unwrap that all. But for the show, you don't know much about her. You just know the good things.
Yeah, I was just going to follow on from what you were saying about the tape recorder scene. What I found interesting was that you mentioned Firewalk with Me. In the episode, she talks to the tape in this kind of, almost like childlike voice, and she's very playful with it. And she says it's easier talking into the recorder. I guess I feel I can say anything, which I thought was kind of interesting. It was almost like almost like a kind of foreshadowing of like social media and things, and the way that, online people feel like they can say things that they wouldn't normally say in real life. But the other thing was that I believe it's in the missing pieces of Fire Walk With Me, is that I think it's when Laura's getting ready to go out on the night of the 23rd, and Jacoby calls her, and he says something along the lines of, "Oh, have you recorded another tape for me?" And she sounds really kind of like exasperated by him, like almost like a bit annoyed, like, "Oh, yeah, kind of leave me alone." And I just thought it was interesting that obviously she's very playful in this scene, so I think it just shows that she has multiple personalities, and that she has different personas that she turns on at different times.
Definitely.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, it was creepy the way she's talking to Jacoby with these tapes, and you're like, what is going on here between the two? And it's obviously not that innocent, like Jacoby, he, for lack of a better way of saying this, it seems like he gets off on these tapes in a way. He really enjoys them.
Yeah, I was just going to say that this is where you really start to see that Laura's really manipulative, and she knows how to play different people in different ways to get them to do what she wants, basically. But so she speaks to Jacoby like a child because he feels needed by her then, because she's childlike. And then with James, and that was really sad. I felt really bad for him, especially because two other girls had to hear all the bad things she said. Oh, poor James. Is he supposed to be 17? Oh,
yeah, probably 17 or 18,
Yeah, that's like, I mean, no wonder he went off and joined a band and did his little song.
Just following on from that point, I was going to say, Jacoby he definitely gets off on it. One of my favourite bits from the pilot is when he asks Cooper if he can accompany him to the morgue, and he says no. Why would you want to? And that's obviously just showing that he is kind of getting off on like the kind of drama and that here, and it's kind of a bit sick in the way. But at the same time, when he speaks to Cooper at Laura's grave, he does kind of admit at least to a certain point that that's he said he's a terrible person and he doesn't really care about these people. But he said he did care about Laura, so I think there's a kind of complicated feelings that he's got there, where he does kind of care for her in a bit of a perverted way, but he does also get off on it, definitely.
Yeah. So we have the scene with Audrey at the perfume counter there.
Yeah.
And then Audrey is kind of being detective, and she's going to. It makes me also think of like Blue Velvet, where she's hiding in the.
I thought of that
there.
too.
Yeah.
I wanted more Detective Audrey.
Well, you could have got it. I mean, she was going to be a part of Mulholland Drive, and she would have got a spin-off.
But that didn't happen.
It almost happened.
Just the whole vibe around this idea of the perfume counter is really interesting, because I think it's very realistic that they kind of choose that specific place to kind of pluck these girls from, because I can tell you that from working in salons, for example, as a hairdresser, they do attract a certain type of girl, and there's certain types of guys who then prey on that, and it can be really disturbing. But I've seen it in real life, where there's certain kind of guys, like businessmen and people with money, and they think that these kind of girls are more game for for certain things, and so I just thought that was a really kind of interesting motif to use, this whole idea of them kind of poaching people from the perfume counter.
Which with trinkets, nonetheless. Here's a little trinket, Laura.
It's very disturbing.
Yeah.
See, that trinket I really want. Just a unicorn. It's like one of the only things I haven't been able to find to have as a Twin Peaks collector's item. I really want one. But I just love Audrey in this scene. She's just great. She just knows that she can do whatever she wants. She can smoke in a cupboard. And even if she gets caught, she's not going to get in trouble because she's Audrey Horne. It's just great. But and she was so clever at finding the Black Rose's telephone number and all that. I love that scene.
Great.
Yeah, I wanted more of that from her.
Second season, where she became business Audrey, but I kind of missed that kind of like sneaking around and
Detective Audrey.
Detective Audrey.
Slick back hair like Dale.
Interior, Great Northern Hotel. Day. Ben Horne sits behind his desk, grimaces. He's getting tired of Icelandic drinking songs, the cacophony in the hall. Katherine Martell sits on his desk, mutters.
Why must you deal with heathens? All that singing makes my eyes ache.
Business is business.
Very pithy, Ben. I must make a note of it.
A knock at the door. Einer Thorson steps inside. Katherine slips off the desk, assumes a less casual pose. Einer wipes a little beer off his vest, gestures toward the hallway.
Ben, come join us.
Just as soon as I can get away from this desk. You've got to teach me one of those incredible drinking songs. Einer, I want you to meet a very important woman. Katherine Martell, Einer Thorson. Einer's heading up the delegation from Iceland.
Einer engages Katherine in a hearty, enthusiastic handshake. Katherine endures it.
Katherine manages the Packard sawmill, Einer, but she'll soon be joining us at Ghostwood Estates as project manager.
Excellent. Congratulations. Very good.
Thank you.
Extricating self from handshake, with look at Ben.
You'll have to teach me one of those songs, too.
Certainly. Everybody sings.
Everybody into the vans! Get a move on, partners! No, go on. You can take the keg with you. Ben, Katherine, have you met the future ex-Mrs. Horne? Heba Forrester.
Under her breath, to Ben.
Sounds like a cheese.
We met at the party last night, Jerry.
Of course you did. Love and jet lag have turned my brain to rubble. Einer, buddy, what's the good word?
The word is excellent.
They laugh. Ben's getting impatient.
Jer, maybe you ought to be getting on with the tour of the site. I'm sure the group's dying to see the woods.
Absolutely.
Einer, let's hit the bricks. Heba, honey, grab the basket. I'm getting splinters. Oh, careful. Don't shake the Chardonnay.
Nice to meet you, Katherine.
All offer brief farewells. Exit. Jerry shuts the door behind them.
I never thought I'd miss the Norwegians.
Thanks for coming by, Katherine. Einer was anxious to spend some time with you.
It was special for me, too. Did you talk to Josie last night?
I gave her one last chance. She won't sell. She continues to think of the mill as a monument to Andrew's memory.
Fine. When's the bonfire?
Soon.
Soon?
Katherine, arson is a felony. The less you know, the better. I'm keeping you clear of all this.
Katherine takes a hard look at him. She trusts no one.
Business is business.
That's right.
Ben goes for a kiss. She offers a cheek, then turns and heads for the door.
I've got to get back to the mill. Spread a little kindling.
It kind of always felt that there was a bit of an element missing because we didn't really hear the part of the arrangement between Ben and Katherine. We heard it between Josie and Frank and Leo and Ben, and and they all kind of looped, but it did always feel like that there was a bit missing. And when she does find out that she's been double crossed, it kind of felt a bit like, well, yeah, because you guys didn't really kind of talk about it that much. So I do feel that this it would have been good if this scene, or especially that bit of the scene where they're talking about the arrangement that they have personally, would have been good to see.
Yeah.
It is kind of a remix of, the scene that you get with Ben and Jerry. I wonder if they took Katherine out because later in the episode is when Katherine gets onto Ben's cross with the insurance guy. So that was my theory on it, but who knows? Could have been casting, could have been, woman to place it. Katherine was sick,
Who did you play in the past, Andy?
I did Cooper.
Oh, yeah, that was great.
Ben Horne, and then just a simple one line from Andy. And I did something that I hear improv people do, is that kept, playing the voice over and over again to see if I could find little mannerisms and tics that would make it sound more like him.
And then this episode has one of the most memorable lines, the every day, once a day, give yourself a present, written by Harley Payton.
Yes.
This is a classic.
I love it.
Yeah.
I think about it every day. I get myself a coffee. It's like, I got to treat myself.
Yeah, that's what I say to myself every day, too.
Yeah, I've got to give my shout out to my dad on this, because he watched the original series back when it aired, but he hasn't really watched it since. But he did show me the first episode. He had the episode with the dream sequence tapes, which he showed me when I was a kid, which I really appreciated. But when I was talking to him about it when I was getting back into it in a big way, however many years ago, I said, well, what do you remember about the show? And that line was the one thing that he said. He said, I remember that line. And I think it is one of the best lines in the show in general. And I mean, I don't know about you guys, but I see it on social media all the time. It's a very kind of meme-tastic line.
Mm-hmm. It was funny to see Nadine again, fascinated by, this time it's the soap opera, but in the return, she's fascinated by Dr. Amp.
Coming up, we're going to have Cooper and his tux.
Yes.
James Bond Cooper.
I do like that they're going undercover, and you got Big Ed, and you got it's just Big Ed and Cooper there going undercover.
Yeah, and this goes back to season 3 where he's winning at the casino, and Dale Cooper says, he always wins. They play with the FBI's money, but he always wins extra. So he never loses.
That's a great connection.
Yeah, he never loses.
That absolutely. That he's obviously got the Cooper luck, and that's definitely played a part in the whole casino thing in season 3. So, yeah. I was actually going to talk about Nadine as well. Is that I don't think I'd ever noticed before that she looks at her wrists, because it says here in the script in the deleted scene that there are scars on her wrists, and I'd never actually noticed that. Tried to kill herself before. Quite sad.
It is really sad.
So she tried suicide before.
I mean, in the script, it seems to be indicating that, right? I don't think they showed that on TV.
Interior, Great Northern Hotel Bar. Night. Truman and Big Ed drink coffee at the hotel bar. Ed seems nervous, on edge.
Can I ask you a question, Harry?
Sure.
What do you think of my suit?
That's a fine suit, Ed.
I look like a high roller to you?
Well, yeah, sure.
Agent Cooper says our covers were from the Tri-Cities. Gambling man with a big bankroll.
How much money do you have?
$23.
Just then, Agent Cooper arrives at the bar. He's wearing a sleek black tuxedo. His hair shines. He looks tremendous, and it only makes Ed feel worse.
Evening, Harry. Ed, all set?
Ed's a little worried about his cover.
Ed, do you like to gamble?
Went to Reno once. Never felt too lucky.
You're going to be lucky tonight.
Whips out a large wad of bills.
This is the money from Laura's deposit box. How much would you like to start with?
200?
Here's 3.
Thanks.
When we first see Coop in the tux, I just thought like the whole gambling and money angle was quite interesting, because it's, obviously Coop's normally so by the book, and then he said that he was kind of gambling with the FBI's money, and he liked to, bring a return on it. But what was in the deleted scene was that he actually said in the deleted scene that it was Laura's money, the drug money.
Yeah.
And I thought that was that made it more, that validated it more, because it's like, okay, I've confiscated this money, it's drug money. And so, I don't know, in my eyes, it seems like that kind of made it more acceptable to gamble with, whereas before, when he's just like, oh, I'm gambling with the FBI's money, I don't know what you guys think, but it felt almost like a little bit out of character for Cooper. I'm not sure. What do you guys think?
It was a big sum for 1989 for one FBI to just kind of gather information,
Both are kind of unethical.
Yes.
With the government's money, you're really paying for taxpayers' money. He's
gambling with taxpayers.
Right.
Yeah.
But then I think that's probably why they changed it, was that this was an investigation on who killed Laura Palmer, and they seized that money because it's part of the investigation. It would be probably wrong for him to use it.
That might come off as even more unethical, because he's saying, I will win the money back. We're not going to lose any.
Yes.
And he does it, so we're fine. But if he were to steal money from the case, then you're questioning, would he be willing to steal anything from that case file?
But it's evidence.
It's evidence.
But evidence, I care. So for me, the FBI money, I don't care. You can really spin it any way to be bad.
Yeah, I think it kind of leads to a kind of larger thing about, I mean, I think the first time that we see Cooper maybe not do things 100% by the book is when he's first introduced to the Bookhouse Boys, and they've captured Bernie, who was muling drugs across the border, and obviously that was his first time. And he doesn't kind of say to the guys that maybe it's not the best thing to kind of kidnap this guy and interrogate him, but
Yeah.
and then the money is kind of like a thing on from that. The point that I'm getting at is that I don't know, maybe it is like the Bookhouse Boys and the town kind of having a bit of an influence on him. Like maybe he's trying to, I don't know, almost impress them a little bit, or maybe he feels because they're such good people and he really loves the town that he's willing to kind of, bend the rules a little bit for them.
Yeah.
That's a good point. I like that. Yeah.
Just a thought.
I think he's trying to impress them a little bit too. Yeah, I think that's what it is. He trusts Harry. The Bookhouse Boys have their own way of doing things. He doesn't step on their toes. He doesn't tell them not to do that. So this is maybe his saying, "Hey, I can be a little bad too."
Right.
I got a bad side.
So Waldo gets shot.
Waldo
by Leo.
Say it now.
Laura. Been waiting all night to say
Hurting me.
It's just sad death. It seems so brutal. But I mean, the first thing that we need to say about Waldo is I thought it was interesting that again a little bit out of character. I'm starting to feel like there's a little bit of a pattern here with this episode with Cooper, that he does seem like really afraid of Waldo, and I don't know whether this was maybe a reference to the elves not being what they seem, possibly. But I thought that was quite interesting. And then, of course, when he's killed, I mean, first of all, that must have been an amazing shot from Leo on a dark, rainy night to have managed to get the very small minor bird. So first of all, I mean, you got to give credit where it's due. I mean, that's an amazing shot, but the blood dripping down over the donuts is sacrilege, because not only is it disgusting, but he's ruining good donuts. Surely must be the cardinal sin.
It kind of looks like jelly donuts, though. It makes me think of jelly donuts, which is Cooper's favorite donut. So.
Yeah.
I think the whole lead up to Waldo being like the only witness they have, and they're waiting, and it's all kind of a bit silly that they're waiting on a bird, and the way that Lucy talks to Waldo, and it's all really cutesy. And then when he dies, it's like really, really disturbing.
Yeah.
And then when they play back the recording of Waldo speaking, it's like, whoa, I wasn't expecting that. That's really, really nasty, because I think that's the first time as well that you really hear Laura was being horribly treated before her death.
Yeah.
It's gone from really funny to really serious.
True.
And that was brilliantly written. And yeah, like you said, the jam, it looked like jam on the donut.
Yeah.
It was just dripping so much blood from such a tiny bird.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was great scene.
Yeah, there's quite a few elements of this scene that are quite disturbing. It's not just Waldo's assassination, but the recording of Laura, which is also obviously reminiscent of the other scene where we're listening to Laura on the tape recorder elsewhere in the episode. It's obviously a bit of a dark kind of mirroring of that. But also we see the poker chip as well. Obviously the one that Laura's bitten down of, and there's traces of it in her stomach. That's also quite a disturbing motif, and just all of those elements all together in one scene. I think it's a very kind of harrowing but powerful scene.
Interior, Great Northern Hotel Bar. Night. Cooper and Truman exit. Audrey Horne enters, looks about. She just missed them. She picks up a house phone, dials.
Has Agent Cooper returned yet? I'd like to leave another message, please. Tell him Audrey called again. Yes, it's still urgent.
Audrey hands up, wonders. There's one more number to call. She dials, waits. Then...
May I speak to Donna, please? It's Audrey Horne. No, just tell her I called. Thanks, Dr. Hayward.
Audrey hands up. She's run out of numbers. This may be something she has to handle on her own. Audrey walks down a corridor, pauses. She hears familiar voices coming from her father's office. Dr. Jacobi, her mother, and Johnny letting out a chilling howl. Oh!
Johnny, please!
Let me handle this. Johnny, remember our talk?
Oh! Audrey reacts, wonders. She steps to a small secret doorway, opens it, and enters. Audrey moves to her peephole as she hears Jacoby continuing from the other side.
I want you to listen to me, partner. We're partners, aren't we, pal? Aren't we?
Audrey slides the cover off the peephole and looks inside Ben Horne's office. Dr. Jacoby, Mrs. Horne, and Johnny in mid-session. Johnny on a large sofa, quiet now, seemingly catatonic. Mrs. Horne sits beside him, holds Johnny's hand. Jacoby is perched atop Horne's desk. He speaks softly, trying hard to reach the boy.
Laura's not coming back, Johnny. She's gone to some place safe and warm, where every stranger is a friend, and every friend greets you with a smile. All those smiling faces make a kind of music, Johnny. A song that starts deep inside your heart. A song you knew all your life, but can never quite remember the melody. Laura's listening to it now. She's singing for you and for me, and no one will ever hurt her again.
Johnny begins to roll back and forth, lost, vacant. Jacoby turns to look at Mrs. Horne. He gestures toward the other side of the room. He'd like to talk to her in private. Jacoby rises, steps with Mrs. Horne to the far wall. They pause at the peephole, inches away, so close that their whispering lips are all Audrey can see.
Mrs. Horne, you mustn't blame yourself.
Mrs. Horne turns to look at her son, Johnny now softly moaning.
I've told you this before, but I've never told you the entire truth. I've been holding this inside for so long. When Johnny fell, Johnny was 9. Audrey was just a baby, crawling then. She was such an active little thing. We were standing at the top of the stairs, talking, Johnny and I. Audrey tried to stand up and pushed against Johnny's leg. He took a step back onto one of her toys and slipped, and the next thing we knew, Johnny was falling down the stairs, all the way down. He didn't just fall, Audrey pushed him.
Mrs. Horne stops, wipes a tear from her eye. Jacoby takes her hand, just holds it for a while. Audrey stands and weeps in the dark, shattered beyond all measure. This is one secret she wishes she had never learned. Audrey turns away from the peephole, exits the corridor. Jacoby brings Mrs. Horne's hand upward, looks into her eyes. He wanted to be sure she's listening to every word.
Sylvia, Johnny's condition is not the result of a fall or a physical injury of any kind. His faculties are intact.
She looks up at him.
He has simply retreated to a world of his own devising, a place to hide, a place where he feels safe. He's chosen to remain a child, demanding our care and attention. His fall had nothing to do with his current condition, and neither does Audrey.
But why?
I believe he made this choice in order to avoid confronting some other emotional trauma, dating from early childhood or perhaps infancy. And if we can unearth his secret, I know we can bring Johnny back again.
Mrs. Horne embraces him with gratitude, newfound hope. Johnny, who's been listening from across the room with comprehension, looks away.
It's a bummer we never got it. Johnny's, so unexplored in the series.
Yeah.
Johnny's like one of my favorite characters. I've written a big article about Johnny and how I feel like he's hiding. He's got something. He's witnessed something as a child. So yeah, leaving this scene with so much information out, I wish they'd kept it in. I think the worst thing is that Audrey hears all of this, that she pushed her brother down the stairs, and she feels that her mother is blaming her, and she misses the bit where Jacoby tells her, no, this is nothing to do with that fall at all. She only hears the bit where she pushes her brother. So she thinks she's responsible for that, which is terrible, isn't it?
It is terrible.
But it is one of the most fascinating mysteries of Twin Peaks for me is Johnny. You want to know what happened to him. He's kind of Annie-like, trapped between two worlds in a way. That I know that he's obviously seen as having autism or being on the spectrum later on in season 3 and in Mark Fletcher's books.
Right.
But here you just don't know. That wasn't really explored back in the 90s. It wasn't talked about as much as it is now. Yeah, so I just want to know what happened to Johnny as a kid. What is? I mean, he seems to be sort of linked to Laura. He only spoke for Laura. He told Laura that he loved her. And a lot of what he did, and in season 3, where we see him running, dressed almost like Cooper in his bright blue pajamas, running up to a wall and to a picture of the Great Northern. He seems to know so much more, and that's the only way he can communicate it. I'm fascinated by Jack.
Yeah, me too. A missed opportunity to have explored that. It would have been something to be like if he had answers to what happened to Laura.
That's what I thought.
Yeah.
Remember? Do we think he saw it and he was going to somehow one day say, I know who killed Laura Palmer.
Right, or something. Give something away.
It's a massive thing to have left out, but, maybe that was the reason it was left out, was because, it was such a big thing, and the only reason I can think that they might have left it out of is just maybe it made possibly the episode maybe a bit too dense or something like that. But very, very strange to leave all of that out and not kind of come back to it, because there's a lot to unpack there. But first of all, earlier in the scene, before she goes into her kind of crawl space, the fact that she tries to put through a call to Donna, I thought was something that was a shame that was missed, because I know I've heard people flag it up before, because there's obviously the favourite scene of them in the bathroom at school.
Yeah.
And she's saying that we can work on this together and try and figure it out, and that's just never revisited at all.
Right.
There's never, Audrey never even tries to talk to her again. About the case. So even just that phone call that she tried to call her before she went to One Night Jack's, but she wasn't available. I thought would have been really good to have left in. And then the other thing was that there's Jacoby's description of death. I thought was quite comforting. Really, I thought that was really quite nice. It would have been nice to have left that in as well.
Interior, casino, night. Big Ed stands at the craps table, watches the dice roll. The shooter craps out. Ed sighs, watches another chip raked off the table. He's losing. The croupier shoves his dice his way. It's Ed's turn to throw. Just then, a beautiful bar girl sidles up next to him, draws a long lacquered fingernail down the length of his arm.
Place a bet for me?
She's a hooker looking for a trade. Ed musters a little courage, takes a chip from his dwindling supply, hands it to her.
Sure.
The bar girl checks the chip's value, doesn't bother to hide her frown. She tosses it to the croupier as if it were a wad of used gum.
I'll play the cum.
Ed concentrates, prepares to throw. The bar girl presses a corner of his mustache back down.
It's okay, big fella. The wife can't see you.
Ed sweats visibly. She takes his hand, brings it up to her mouth.
Here. For luck.
The bar girl blows lightly on his fingers. Ed blushes down to his boots. He turns back to the table, invigorated, and hurls the dice toward the rear of the pit. The dice tumble and roll, come up snake eyes. Ed sighs. Another loser. He looks up to see the bar girl's reaction, but there is nothing but empty space beside him. The girl is long gone.
It was amusing, this scene that we didn't get. I thought it would have been nice to have still had that, just because it was quite fun. But it was. I think especially after when they first meet Blackie, Cooper and Ed kind of drops the ball a little bit by saying he's a mechanic, but then he picks it back up again.
Right. I like to look under your hood. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. So I think that maybe including this as well. I think he already kind of seemed a little bit out of his comfort zone. So maybe this scene as well might have made him look a bit, maybe a bit too inadequate. I'm not sure, but it was great that scene with Blackie though. When it kind of almost gave me this feeling of when like you're quite young and you're like kids, and there's always one who's like a leader, which is obviously Cooper, and he does all the talking to the grown-ups, so to speak, and then there's always one kid who kind of messes it up by saying the wrong thing. I just thought that whole kind of dynamic was really, really fun.
And I guess let's talk about the most disturbing scene is Maddie dressing up as Laura.
Is that disturbing?
Well, it's mean because they're trying to play a prank on Jacoby.
Well, not a prank. They're trying to get him
He has
out.
a heart attack. He could have died.
That wasn't a prank. They were trying to get him out of his office so they could...
It was a prank, too. I mean, I get it. They want him out of the office, but they could have done so many other things. But to pretend Laura's back, and they send him the videotape, and, like, he has a heart attack because of it.
Now, remember, Brian, you wondered if Maddie really was Laura, didn't you?
I did.
Yes.
With my original watch, I really thought that, like, Laura...
So Maddie really was killed, and Laura made her look like... Or then somebody made her look like Laura, and Laura then pretended to be Maddie.
It was, very convoluted.
I was just going to say, of all the things they could have done to get Jacoby out of the house, how did they even think that up? I know, obviously, Maddie looked like Laura, but to go to that extent, it was really harsh, and it just does give you a feeling of how sort of ruthless Donna was she really needed to get this information. It was the start of her investigations as well, really.
Right.
And it was separate to Audrey. They were both doing it. They were both doing their separate investigations. I know Donna's kind of hated for it, for all the people she gets into trouble, like Harold later on as well. I mean, I quite like Donna's character, actually. I think she's just a kid who's trying to find out what happened to her best friend, and people don't really forgive her for being 17. But yeah, no, they do. I do find the whole scene where we see Laura on tape is really creepy. I don't like it at all. It's like she's come back from the dead.
Yeah, it is
horrible.
It is creepy.
With the scene and how we were to prove it's truly her, VHS tape with the today's paper, I was just thinking about things today with deep fakes. Like, that wouldn't convince anyone at all.
That's so true. We wouldn't say Photoshop, but they would have doctored it or whatever. We have things where the president is writing messages on a book or whatever it is. We can doctor it any way we want.
Yeah, that was the deep fakes of back then.
I was just going to say that moment where Maddie steps out of the shadows as Laura, with Laura's theme playing, I think is actually one of my favourite moments of the series. Really, I just think it's really powerful, and it seems to be kind of almost like a culmination of this whole, like you guys were saying, like there's this feeling that Laura's life was so intriguing that it's sending all these people on a hunt to find out her secrets, Cooper, Audrey, Donna and everything. And I don't know, just seeing her step out dressed as Laura, I just felt like it was a really good kind of representation of that. And yeah, I just think it's a great moment. And also I think it's funny that she's obviously wearing a blonde wig, much like Julee did when she was filming Firewalk with Me.
Yeah.
That's
true.
true.
Yeah.
Right. Yep.
Everybody talks about that wig.
I think the wig's fine, by the way, in Firewalk with Me. I know it gets a bad rep, but I'm a hairdresser and I think it looks fine. But I just thought that was an interesting kind of, parallel that they're both wearing the blonde wig now.
I watched Firewalk with Me, and I never knew she was wearing a wig. I mean, at times her hair looked odd, but I never knew about the wig until later on. And then I watch it, and it doesn't bother me either. I wouldn't even know it. Brought this up a long time ago. The only person it's ever bothered me is Billy Zane, because you could see the hairline pasted on his forehead.
He's obsessed with this.
And then I googled Billy Zane. So Billy Zane was losing his hair early, so he shaved his head bald. And when he did Twin Peaks, that was fake hair. But on the Blu-ray, you could see the glue line as plain as day.
This doesn't bode well for the 4K release.
I
know. You're going to see a line. Like he's a Lego man. Laura?
That's why he had to wear that sweater, so that you could...
All your attention was on
the hair.
Yes.
Just look at it. It's so bright, no one will notice the hair.
And that was his sweater, too.
Yeah, I forgot it was his dad's, his grandfather's.
It was his own sweater. Maybe that was... I think, Laura, you're onto something here. He's like, nobody will notice the hairline. I gotta have this sweater on.
Except for Brian, 25 years later.
I'm watching going, Billy Zane glued on his hair? Like, I was really blown away by that. Anyway, so this episode ends with Jacoby on the ground, and then...
At what is it? It's Easter Park there. So they're at Easter Park, and he hasn't actually confronted her yet. I mean, he's going to have the heart attack, we know. But yeah, it just kind of ends with that. Is it Bobby's putting drugs in the
gas tank?
Yeah.
Someone's lurking, watching them.
That's
again, we just before when Maddie leaves the Palmer house, we see Leland looking really intense.
Yeah.
He's sitting in the dark in his front room, and I don't think that's probably the first time we've seen him looking slightly unhinged, maybe.
Yeah.
A bit more like the Bob version of him.
Menacing, really. And then the next episode, he'll be suffocating Jacoby, and those are the.
Yeah.
I don't know why back then you didn't think like, yeah, he's definitely the killer. He's out of control here, but
he killed someone.
Yeah.
It's quite amazing. Laura actually just said almost word for word exactly what I was going to say. Is that when Maddie leaves the house, he's just sitting in the dark. So obviously Maddie doesn't notice him. And first of all, the lighting is spot on because he kind of turns his head out of the light to watch her leave, and then kind of just turns back and just sinks back into the shadow like perfectly. And that was that reminded me of when in Fire Walk With Me, that when she goes and jumps on James's bike and then he appears from kind of behind the curtains, it was kind of like a mirroring of that. And then obviously, we learn from next episode that he obviously follows, he ends up following Maddie. But another thing I was going to say was that when we do see him attack Jacoby, he's got a kind of black balaclava on, and I kind of realised that in one of the first episodes when Bobby and Mike go to meet Leo in the woods for the first time, and they see a guy with a black balaclava peeking from behind a tree, and they say to Leo, "Is somebody with you?" And I thought, well, after seeing him attack Jacoby in that balaclava, we can probably only assume that was him there as well.
Maybe. I mean, that's one of those mysteries that we never did figure out, but it would make sense that he's
and it's what's also strange is that they say, "Is somebody with you?" And the way Leo says it, he says like, "Don't worry about it," as if he kind of knows. So it's quite, I mean, it's one of those things that we'll never know for sure, but I think we can only assume that it was Leland kind of stalking randomers around the town.
Yeah,
it's a small thing, but do you get the? I'm going to look after the episode, but the back alley here of Jacoby, because I think they did all their outside or their location shots like for the pilot. I think this is kind of rejiggered to be where Andy shoots Jacques in the next episode. Do you feel like this is the same kind of studio space that they're using?
I don't know. I can't tell.
No.
I think
could be.
I don't know. I'm looking at it, but I can't tell where they would have been.
Where the cop cars are, and Jacques grabbed his gun. I don't know. I thought it looked familiar.
I guess you're right. It could very much be like the warehouse. Like there was like a warehouse district where Jacques is arrested and shot. Yeah. I bet you're right.
I didn't cite it as being that exact location from the scene that Andrew's talking about, but it did look very familiar to me as well. I do get the feeling that it is definitely used in something else, and I do think that is something that guys do very often to kind of save money on locations and things. I mean, I think they will sometimes really squeeze as many scenes out of one location. It's like, you go around the other side of a building and, most of the time you can kind of get away with it. But no, it definitely looked pretty familiar to me as well. I think it has definitely been used in another scene.
Where's Stephen Miller when we need him? He knows all about the different locations.
Oh, God. He's good.
Usually I would say in this episode, is there anything... Actually, I think we may have said it. Is there anything in this episode that would make us think that Leland could be the killer? And I think
we said it.
I guess we said it because, I mean... him sitting down in the living room, and he seemed very menacing and disturbing. I think back then I would have thought, oh, he's still grieving, and he's grieving in the dark, and he's like just looking out to see like what's going on. Did somebody just leave the house? But
he does it very oddly. Yeah.
And they push Leo so hard, with the reveal on the tape.
That's true.
it makes sense to assume that he's just sitting in the dark, kind of grieving, because we haven't seen so much the grieving from his side. We see it a lot from Sarah's side, but that's
his grieving is dancing, right?
I think that's what.
Yeah.
Exactly. Apart from the dancing, but what I mean is we haven't seen him in like a solemn moment, kind of contemplating.
That's true.
But I do think that also, in retrospect, I do think it is the biggest clue, or one of the biggest clues in the first season, to him having to being, not quite what he seems. And I do think he is in full Bob mode at that point. And I think that is probably the first time that we see that.
Yeah. So this is the episode, but I think a few of you guys have things to talk about that you guys have been up to. And I guess I'd love to start with Laura. What have you been up to related to Twin Peaks?
Ooh, well, I've been to the Twin Peaks Festival, which was
10th anniversary.
10th anniversary party. Yeah, that was fantastic, and we had Kenneth Welsh and George Griffith and David Warner were the guests. Although David Warner was only there for the Saturday, and he wasn't part of the Q&A or anything. He was just there for signings on the Saturday.
And did you get to talk to David?
Did I? Sorry.
Did you get to meet him? Did you get to talk with David?
I didn't actually. I didn't. There was quite a huge queue to see him. It wasn't sort of part of the ticket, so I didn't. But I think other people from 25 Years Later did, like Martin and Anthony did. So they spent quite a bit of time with him.
Nice.
And I know Martin had a really long interview with Kenneth Welsh as well. So that will be coming out soon.
Coming up, yeah.
And George Griffith was lovely. He was, I didn't know what to expect from Ray. But no, he was actually very, very cool, very chilled out. And he's very open speaking to us on an individual basis. He was a bit shy when it came to the Q&A. He had to keep a lot of information back, but I'm guessing that's because he's still under NDA and didn't want to spill too many beans, whereas with Kenneth Welsh, you could talk about it. It was 30 years ago, and his character's long gone. It was really interesting. Very interesting.
Cool.
It was interesting to hear that George Griffith only ever got the part because he wrote to David Lynch saying, "I'll be a PA, I'll just make coffee."
It's pretty awesome.
But then got a part. That's the way to do it if you know David Lynch's address.
So now we all know how to get into the next project.
Right.
We'll write a letter.
I'll start writing right now.
We'll do anything. And he's like, you all got parts.
Yeah.
And Simon, have you done anything lately related to Twin Peaks?
I have. I went to, there was an event in Manchester, which was part of the International Manchester Festival, and it was called David Lynch at Home. Home was the name of an art gallery in Manchester, which was a very, very cool space, and it had the biggest collection of his artwork that has been gathered in one exhibition today. So that was very cool. It was in different sections of kind of different themes throughout his kind of life. So it was great to see all of that artwork in one place. I don't know if for anybody who has seen his artwork, I'm sure you probably know that it's very kind of abstract, and it's quite crazy, really. I mean, people think that he's all about film and TV, but he does primarily class himself as a painter first and foremost, and it's almost like the most raw kind of creativity that you might see from him. So if you get a chance to see any of his artwork, I strongly suggest it. It's very, very interesting. And then what also happened that was attached to this was there was 2 nights of music. No, sorry, there was 3 nights, but I went to 2 nights of music curated by Krista Bell. I went on the first 2 nights. Krista performed on both nights, and the headliner on the Thursday and the Friday was Anna Calvi. Anna Calvi is an amazing British musician. If you haven't heard of her, I strongly suggest that you check her out. She's just been nominated for the Mercury Prize, and she did an amazing set She's also just done the music for the latest series of Peaky Blinders, if there's any Peaky Blinders fans out there. And then on the second night, that was headlined by These New Puritans, and they did a very kind of David Lynch themed set with a lot of covers from various films, and obviously songs from Twin Peaks, from the soundtrack and from the show. And it was an amazing weekend. There were other events that were going on that was part of the whole festival, but that was the kind of Lynch themed ones, and it was really something special to have, especially in Manchester of all places. I mean, we kind of expect these things to happen in London, but it was really nice to kind of go up there and be able to see all of that.
Cool. Very nice.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And Andy, I know in the past you've been doing other podcasts, and what have you been up to lately?
Well, it's a much smaller scale here, but last time I was on, I mentioned I was taking my mom through the series, and we are right at the tail end. We've got 5 episodes left of The Return.
Wow.
Oh, wow. So you're on The Return now. Wow.
We started doubling up every weekend.
Wow. What does she think of The Return? It's so different from the original first and second season.
Yeah. Funny thing is, maybe 3 or 4 episodes in, she said, well, I thought Cooper was just going to come back.
Me too. Me too.
Everybody did.
And she has a similar feeling that I think a lot of us do. We watch this on the weekend, and then during the week, she checked out the premiere of American Horror Story, and she said, geez, going back to other shows, it's not the same. Like, great show, but she was like, I know that to that, and now we're done, and it's 42 minutes later. She's really impressed by how different it is.
It is. It really is.
Wow.
It's its own thing.
Yeah.
It's a movie.
Yeah. That's awesome. That's a great thing to do with your mom.
I'm also moving her quickly because, she doesn't start forgetting a couple of, key things there.
Yeah.
So, somewhere in between a binge and a weekly check-in.
Cool.
I had a article that I'm going to be sending to her when we're all done that I really enjoyed. So if you wouldn't mind, I would like to plug that. And it is over at Cinematic Detective. Mm-hmm. And the name of the article is A Cry for Compassion, Twin Peaks Season 3. And the author, his name is David JJR. That is his handle. So I think through all that, you ought to be able to find it. Maybe, Ben, you could put a link for it.
Yeah, I'll put it in the show notes. Right, I'll put in the link there for everybody to check it out.
I hope everyone else reads it. It's one of the most cohesive, interesting looks at the third season, other than the great work at 25 Years Later, that I've read. So, awesome. Check it out.
So why don't we go around and start with Simon, then Laura, and then Andy, and just be like, let us know what you're working on or how people can follow you.
Sure. You can find me through the 25 Years Later site. My full name is Simon McDermott. You can find my contact details on there, and you can obviously look at all the articles that I've been writing for the site. In the rest of my day-to-day, I'm a script editor and a script supervisor, so I'm constantly kind of reading scripts and editing those for people. If anybody has a script that they'd like me to read or that they'd want a second opinion on or just a fresh pair of eyes, I really enjoy reading scripts and will always be happy to do that for people.
Most active on Twitter at Abuddha, ABUDDAH. No other real podcasts currently going now, taking hiatus. And I already plugged my article, and I think that's it.
Nice. Thank you, Andy.
Yeah.
And Laura?
Yeah.
We hear you.
Plug what you're doing and how people can get a hold of you.
Okay. Oh, right. So we're doing loads of stuff. 25 years later at the moment, I think we're about to start Watchmen, which is out. Is it the 20th?
Yes.
20th of October.
Excited for that.
Yeah. We've been writing, I think Simon has as well, we've been writing a few sort of lead-up articles about the characters. So to check out 25 Years Later to find out about the original graphic novel stuff. there, and then I'm going to be doing weekly episode analysis as well.
Nice.
Awesome.
So,
Can't wait.
On top of everything else. And Cameron's working on Mr. Robot at the moment, and he's doing weekly episode analysis of that, which just started. And what else? All October we've been doing Halloween stuff and a new horror article every day for 31 days.
Nice.
And because we've recently launched our gaming department as well, so we're currently doing lots of indie gaming and horror gaming and a series on Zelda, sort of talking about every single Zelda game.
Wow. You gotta check that out.
Yeah, we love Zelda.
Because Link's Awakening is out.
Yeah.
So we've I think somebody's just reviewed that, but we've gone back to the beginning. We're literally going through every single game and in a nostalgic kind of way. And we do talk about the gameplay, but it's mostly sort of how it's made us feel for the last 30 years.
Yeah.
We were all just already preparing for Twin Peaks this month in February. Because, we have to think about it that far in advance.
I know.
It's coming up quick.
Yeah.
I know.
I think the other thing that I wanted to talk about was that over the summer, I was lucky enough to go to a club in Paris that was actually designed and decorated by David Lynch. It's called Silencio, and that is very much the theme. It's very similar to the club that's featured in Mulholland Drive. If anybody happens to be in Paris, I strongly suggest that you check it out. It's a really cool club. It's about something like 4 or 5 stories underground. It's like you wouldn't really be able to identify it from the outside unless you know where it is. So you kind of need to kind of research a bit before you go. But it's one of the coolest kind of club / bars that I've ever been in. Everything down to the bathrooms, and he's got this really cool smoking area that's inside. That has these kind of almost like these kind of dead trees in, but it's very kind of gold themed, a bit like the Festive Disruption in New York. He likes to use gold a lot. I think infuse the machine with gold, I think, was the tagline for the Festive Disruption in New York, and that was it's very much that kind of theme. But yeah, there's different events going on. They do gigs and things there. But yeah, if anybody's ever in Paris, and I really suggest checking it out. It was really something quite special.
Nice.
That's awesome.
That's cool. Well, thank you all for being on the show. This is great. It's good talking with you, and it was really, really awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
It's my pleasure. Thank you so much for having me on.
Thank you to the unseen players, RobEdKing, Aidan, Lindsay, Gisela, Peter, and Twin Peaks. You guys did an amazing performance. I just love all these unseen scenes. They are really something else.
All right. And if anybody has a comment, question, or a theory, give us an email at twinpeaksunwrapped@gmail.com. Like us on the old Facebook. Follow us on Twitter. Subscribe. Give us that 5-star review on iTunes. We're on Spotify and Google Play. And we will see everybody in 2 weeks.
Let me handle this, Mrs. Horne.
Johnny, stop it! This is
Listen, Laura's not coming back, Johnny. Do you hear what I'm saying?
You stay out of it! Stay out of it! You're hurting your mother!
It's all right, Johnny.
No, it's not all right. I can't take this anymore. Johnny, stop it! Leave him alone, Mother!
I'm here, Johnny. I'm here.
God, you never loved him. That's why he's like this.
You little bitch. You think it's me? It's all your fault he's like this.
What are you talking about?
Johnny was fine. You pushed him down the stairs. It was Thanksgiving morning and we were getting ready to go. Johnny was 9 and you came running up and you pushed him and he fell all the way down the stairs and hit his head. It's all your fault.
Audrey. Sylvia, you've got to go after her. You've got to speak to your daughter.
I can't. I won't.
But what you said to her is just not true. Johnny's condition is not the result of a fall. His faculties are completely intact. He's chosen to be a child.
Why?
Well, he made this choice in order to escape some early emotional trauma. And if we can unearth his secret, maybe just maybe we can bring Johnny back to us again.